Well, let's take another look at how things are tracking with Professor Dan Zirker, who's in the studio with me. First off, let's start with some of these states that are turning... Well, you said things are starting to get a bit strange, didn't you?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Well, especially across the Rust Belt and the North, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Ohio all look as though they're leaning or have already been declared for President Trump. And this was really unexpected after the relative failure to bring the jobs back from China, as had been promised. But it also is a reflection perhaps on polling. 15 years ago, our University of Waikato, and many other universities closed down their CADDY labs, their computer-assisted telephone interview labs, simply because there weren't enough landlines and there were too many cell phones to guarantee that the landlines would provide a random choice. Now I'm wondering, are there too many news media outlets that are depending upon landlines in their polling? Because there may be a systematic sampling bias. In the 1930s, the most popular magazine in the United States, the Literary Digest, called the election against Franklin Delano Roosevelt based on telephone interviews at a time when only the wealthy had telephones, and the Literary Digest went out of business subsequently. Now I wonder if we're not having an opposite effect, where in fact too many landlines, impossibility of determining a non-biased outcome. And as far as I can tell, this is the only way I could explain.
What about the shy voter theory, Dan? The idea that people don't want to be upfront about who they're voting for.
Well, that's been explored recently in a number of fairly reputable publications, and they've argued that this is a very small percentage of the population. But I'm wondering if there are a number of people, as Kate in the last interview said, that simply don't answer the phone or don't speak English and don't respond to somebody on the phone. I also know that in the United States, anyone who has a landline gets dozens and dozens of calls a day from advertisers and from other sources. And many people just simply unplug their landlines and use the package deal to have their cell phones. Cell phones don't have a listing from which a random choice could be selected.
Brilliant, yeah, and as Max was saying, there's going to be a lot of questions asked about polling again. Now, those states that you've identified as being the ones to watch, let's hone in on Pennsylvania for a moment. Why is that so important, and who is it most important to?
Well, that's most important to Donald Trump because he is looking at a zero-sum game as he moves toward these last few states. But he's leading by a large margin with 60% of the votes counted. And I'm wondering if his argument that the jobs would be brought back from China simply went past the voters of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so at the moment, as you said, 60% of the vote in Pennsylvania. Donald Trump sitting on 57%, Joe Biden on 41.7% from what I can see there. Is this, well, the demographics of this state, predominantly white, African Americans around 11%, white voters 80%. So what role is race and race relations playing in this election?
Well, extreme. We'd have to say the Black Lives Matter movement has come out of states like Pennsylvania. And in fact, there's a huge split between urban and rural. And I would have to agree with you. It's just a major and rather intractable distinction between African Americans and their votes and whites.
Let's talk briefly about the Senate race, because you've had your eye on that. While everybody's looking to the presidency, you've been watching what's been going on there. Can you bring us up to date?
Yeah. There's some very interesting results in Senate elections. We would have to say, for example, that Arizona is now leaning toward voting Mark Kelly, the husband of Gabby Giffords, who was almost killed in an assassination attempt.
This is the astronaut.
That's the astronaut, twin brother of an astronaut as well. Oregon, of course, is expected to go Democratic, but Colorado has seized the election from Cory Gardner, John Hickenlooper. It looks as though in these top states, with the exception of Georgia, which had, right now, it's unclear in the special election that's going on there. Raphael Warnock is ahead. He's an African-American candidate, but there's not enough information yet.
But the swing is to?
Well, we can't say that it's a major swing, but it looks like there is a little bit of a swing at this point, to the Democrats. And of course, California, Nevada, Utah do not have any candidates. Only about a third of the Senate is reelected. They are in 6-year terms, and every 2 years, about a third of them are replaced.
All right, well, you keep watching that one for us, Dan. That's Dan Zirker, our US politics expert.